For countless generations, the story of milk began in a world that seemed untouched by time, a world where the production of milk was woven into the very fabric of rural life. The image was one of pastoral simplicity, where the gentle clanging of cowbells echoed across rolling hills, and the air was thick with the scent of fresh grass and earth. We pictured small herds of cattle grazing peacefully in green fields, watched over by farmers who often knew each animal by name and temperament. These were family-run farms where generations worked side by side, passing down knowledge and traditions that shaped not just the land, but the community itself. This was a local affair, a closed loop where the land fed the cows nourished the people, and the people in turn cared for the land. The rhythm of life was dictated by the changing seasons, spring's renewal, summer's abundance, autumn's harvest, and winter's rest. Milk was a fresh local product, often delivered in glass bottles to the doorstep, travelling only a short distance from the farm to the kitchen table. This system, while perhaps less efficient by modern standards, was deeply connected to the landscape and the local economy. It formed a cornerstone of rural life across many parts of the world, supporting not just farmers, but also local markets, craftsmen and entire communities. The relationship between people, animals and the land was intimate and reciprocal. However, over the past few decades, a dramatic transformation has occurred, one that has fundamentally altered every link in the chain. The quiet, small-scale family farm has been steadily replaced by a vast, industrialized system that operates on a global scale. Today, the world of dairy is dominated by immense, highly mechanized operations where efficiency and output are the ultimate goals. The focus has shifted from nurturing animals in a natural setting to managing them as units of production within a complex and demanding supply chain. The new paradigm is driven by powerful economic forces, technological advancements, and a political will that favours consolidation and competition on the world stage. Decisions are made in boardrooms, not barns, and the scale of operations is staggering. This shift was not accidental but a deliberate evolution fueled by the pursuit of lower prices and higher volumes. The goal became to produce as much milk as possible, as cheaply as possible, to satisfy a growing global demand. Milk, once a local staple, is now a product that travels thousands of miles, crossing borders and oceans to reach supermarket shelves. Corporations, not individual farmers, began to dictate the terms. They required a constant, uniform supply of milk that could be processed, packaged, and shipped across continents. The small farm, with its variable output and seasonal fluctuations, simply could not compete in this new, unforgiving marketplace. It was the beginning of an era where milk became less of a food and more of a global commodity, traded on markets like oil or grain. The consequences of this industrialization are profound and far-reaching, touching every aspect of the dairy world. It has altered the lives of farmers, redefined the existence of the dairy cow, and placed unprecedented strain on our planet's resources. The environmental impact is staggering: manure lagoons, greenhouse gas emissions, and the depletion of water and soil. Farmers, once stewards of the land, now struggle to survive in a system that values volume over vitality. What was once a symbol of wholesome natural goodness is now at the centre of complex debates about animal welfare, environmental sustainability, and even human health. The glass of milk on our table today is the product of a system that is both remarkably efficient and deeply troubling. To truly understand what it means to drink milk in the modern world, we must journey through this new system, exploring not just the technological marvels and economic forces that drive it, but also the hidden costs and ethical dilemmas that come with its relentless pursuit of efficiency. Only then can we see the full picture behind the simple, familiar glass of milk. At the very core of the dairy industry, it is the farmers who bear the brunt of its harshest realities. These individuals, often from families who have worked the land for generations, find themselves ensnared in a relentless economic trap that seems to tighten with every passing year. Their daily lives are a constant balancing act, teetering between hope and despair as they struggle to keep their farms afloat. Every month, farmers are confronted with a mountain of bills: feed, fuel, equipment repairs, veterinary care, and the ever-increasing costs of new technology required to stay competitive. These expenses rise steadily, often outpacing inflation, leaving farmers with little room to breathe. Meanwhile, the price they receive for their milk remains stubbornly low, dictated by global markets and powerful buyers who care little for the realities on the ground. In many regions, the situation is so dire that the price paid to the farmer for a single litre of milk is actually less than what it costs to produce it. This means that with every litre sold, farmers are losing money, forced to make up the difference through sheer volume or by cutting corners elsewhere. This impossible math creates a desperate situation. Many farmers are forced to take out loans just to cover basic operating costs, plunging them into a cycle of debt that becomes harder to escape with each passing season. The pressure to expand, to buy more cows, more land and more equipment is relentless, often not out of ambition, but out of sheer necessity for survival. The old adage of "get big or get out" is no longer just a saying, it's a harsh reality. Small family farms, once the backbone of rural communities, are being squeezed out by massive industrial operations that can produce milk at a scale unimaginable just a few decades ago. The market now favours those who can operate on a massive scale, leaving smaller producers with little chance of survival. This relentless pressure to grow or die has led to a dramatic consolidation within the industry. Across the countryside, the landscape is changing. Small barns are being replaced by sprawling industrial complexes, and the number of independent family farms dwindles with each passing year. Where once there were thousands of small family-run dairies dotting the landscape, now only a few hundred massive operations remain. The sense of community and tradition that once defined rural life is fading, replaced by the cold efficiency of industrial agriculture. The scale of change is staggering. A farmer who managed a modest herd of 35 cows a few decades ago might now need to oversee more than 500 just to break even. The intimacy and care that once defined the relationship between farmer and animal is often lost in the rush to scale up. For many, this expansion is not a choice born of ambition or greed, but a last-ditch effort to keep the farm in the family. The decision to take on more debt, to risk everything on the hope of survival, weighs heavily on farming families, who must constantly weigh the risks of expansion against the threat of losing everything. The financial burden is immense. Expanding a dairy operation requires enormous capital investment, purchasing land, constructing new barns, upgrading milking equipment, and hiring additional labour. These costs can run into the millions, often plunging families into deep financial uncertainty and making them vulnerable to even the slightest downturn in the market. The emotional and mental toll of this struggle is profound. Farmers face not only the stress of mounting debts and uncertain futures, but also the isolation that comes from watching neighbours and friends lose their farms. Rural communities, once vibrant and close-knit, are now marked by anxiety, depression, and a sense of loss that is difficult to quantify. Despite the hard work and sacrifice of farmers, the system is structured to benefit the large processors and retailers. These powerful entities control the market, setting prices and terms that leave primary producers with little bargaining power. For these corporations, the goal is simple: secure a steady stream of cheap raw materials to maximize their own profits. The well-being of the farmer is secondary, if it is considered at all. Policies that encourage overproduction, often in the name of global competition, ensure that the market is flooded with milk. This glut keeps prices paid to farmers artificially low, while processors and retailers reap the rewards of cheap supply. The result is a treadmill effect. Farmers are compelled to produce more and more milk just to maintain the same level of income. The work is endless, the hours long, and the rewards increasingly meagre. They are, in essence, working harder than ever before, only to see their returns diminish year after year. The physical and emotional exhaustion is palpable, as each day brings new challenges and fewer rewards. This economic model is fundamentally unsustainable for the human element of farming. The relentless drive for efficiency and scale comes at a tremendous cost to the people who make it all possible. The dream of passing a family farm down through generations, a dream that once defined rural life, is fading fast. In its place are foreclosure notices, for sale signs, and the heartbreak of families forced to walk away from land that has been in their care for decades. The immense pressure has led to a tragic crisis in farming communities. Rates of depression, anxiety, and even suicide have risen as many find themselves unable to cope with the financial and emotional burden. Support groups and community meetings offer some solace, but the underlying issues remain unresolved. In the end, it is the farmers who are the first and most direct victims of a system that prioritizes cheap commodities over the well-being of the people who produce them. Their stories are often overlooked, their struggles hidden behind the glossy images of dairy products on supermarket shelves. Their ongoing struggle is a clear and urgent signal that the foundations of our modern milk system are deeply flawed. If we are to build a more just and sustainable future for food production, we must begin by listening to the voices of those who know the land best, and by re-evaluating a system that has left so many behind. In the heart of the industrial dairy system, the very nature of the dairy cow has been fundamentally altered. No longer simply a gentle animal grazing in open fields, she has been transformed into a living engine of production, her existence shaped and defined by the relentless demands of the industry. Through generations of selective breeding, the modern dairy cow, most notably the Holstein, has been engineered to maximize milk output. Her body is a testament to human intervention, a biological machine designed for one overwhelming purpose: to produce milk in quantities that would have been unimaginable just a century ago. Today's high-yield cows can produce up to 10 times more milk than their ancestors, far exceeding the amount needed to nourish a single calf. This staggering productivity is not a natural gift, but the result of intense genetic selection, specialized feeding regimens, and carefully controlled environments. But this extraordinary output comes at a steep price. The modern dairy cow's body is under constant metabolic strain. Her organs, especially her liver and udder, are pushed to their limits, working overtime to convert feed into milk. This chronic stress leaves her vulnerable to a host of health problems. Mastitis, lameness, reproductive disorders, and a weakened immune system are all common afflictions. To maintain this level of production, the cow's life is governed by a strict, artificial schedule. She is milked 2 or 3 times a day, her routine dictated not by the rhythms of nature, but by the unyielding clock of industrial efficiency. Her days are a blur of feeding, milking, and resting in confined spaces, with little opportunity for natural behaviours or social interaction. Central to this system is the cycle of reproduction. In order to keep producing milk, a cow must give birth roughly once every 12 months. This means she is kept in a near-constant state of pregnancy and lactation, her body never given the chance to fully recover. The physical toll is immense, draining her of vital nutrients and energy year after year. Artificial insemination is the norm, performed with clinical regularity. If a cow fails to conceive on schedule, she is quickly deemed unprofitable. Her value is measured solely by her ability to produce milk efficiently and reliably. Any deviation from this standard is grounds for removal from the herd. The productive life of a dairy cow is shockingly brief. While cows can naturally live up to 20 years, those in intensive dairy operations are typically culled after just 3 to 5 years once their milk yield begins to decline. By this point, their bodies are often exhausted, worn down by the relentless demands placed upon them. When her productivity wanes, the cow is sent to slaughter. Her journey ends not in peaceful retirement, but in the cold efficiency of the abattoir. Her body, spent and depleted, is processed for low-grade beef or other products, her years of service reduced to a final transaction. The story of the dairy cow is inseparable from that of her offspring. Each year she gives birth to a calf, an event that in nature would be a time of bonding and nurturing. But in the industrial system, separation occurs within hours, sometimes minutes of birth. The mother and calf call out for each other, their distress palpable, but the demands of production take precedence over their natural bond. Female calves are typically raised to join the ranks of milk producers, destined to repeat the same cycle as their mothers. They are housed in individual pens, fed milk replacer, and prepared for a life of relentless productivity. Male calves, on the other hand, are considered a byproduct, an inconvenient necessity of the dairy process. With no value in milk production, they are often sold for veal or cheap beef, their lives cut short after only a few weeks or months. Some are transported long distances in crowded trucks, others are kept in restrictive crates, denied even the most basic comforts. The fate of these calves is a stark reminder of the hidden costs of dairy production. Their brief, often harsh existence is a direct consequence of the industry's need for constant lactation and maximum efficiency. For the cows themselves, life in the industrial dairy is a far cry from the idyllic image of cattle grazing on green pastures. Many spend their entire lives indoors, confined to narrow stalls or crowded barns, standing on hard concrete floors. They rarely, if ever, feel the sun on their backs or the grass beneath their hooves. This confinement allows for the management of large herds and the optimization of milk collection, but it comes at the expense of the animal's well-being. Natural behaviors, grazing, socializing, roaming, are severely restricted, leading to boredom, frustration, and psychological stress. The modern dairy cow is, in many ways, a marvel of human ingenuity and biological engineering. Yet her short, stressful life is a sobering reflection of the ethical compromises made in the pursuit of ever greater productivity. Behind every glass of milk lies a story of transformation, sacrifice, and the hidden realities of industrial agriculture. When we pour a glass of milk, few of us consider the vast and complex environmental footprint left behind by the modern dairy industry. This impact stretches far beyond the boundaries of the farm itself, rippling across continents and ecosystems in ways that are both profound and deeply troubling. At the heart of this issue is the challenge of feeding high-yield dairy cows. These animals have been selectively bred to produce enormous quantities of milk, far more than their ancestors ever could. Traditional grazing on grass pastures is no longer sufficient to meet their immense energy needs. The land simply cannot provide enough nutrition to sustain such high levels of milk production, especially when cows are kept in large numbers on limited acreage. To bridge this gap, dairy farms rely heavily on energy-dense feed supplements, primarily soybeans and grains. These crops are rich in protein and calories, allowing cows to maintain their extraordinary output. However, the story doesn't end at the feed trough. A significant portion of these feed crops are not grown locally. Instead, they are shipped in from distant regions, often thousands of miles away, creating a vast and intricate web of global trade. Take soy, for example. Massive quantities are imported from South America, where the relentless expansion of soy plantations is a leading cause of deforestation. Ancient rainforests, including the Amazon, are cleared and replaced with endless rows of monoculture crops, destroying habitats, displacing wildlife, and releasing huge amounts of stored carbon into the atmosphere. This global trade in animal feed creates a profound ecological imbalance. Nutrients are extracted from one part of the world, shipped across oceans and concentrated in another, disrupting natural cycles on a planetary scale. When millions of tons of feed arrive in regions like Europe, they bring with them vast amounts of nutrients, especially nitrogen. This nutrient loading is invisible to most consumers, but its consequences are far-reaching. The cows consume these nutrients, but what goes in must come out. The nitrogen is excreted in their manure or slurry, which accumulates in staggering quantities. For every single litre of milk produced, it's estimated that around 3 litres of slurry are generated. This means that the environmental cost of every glass of milk includes not just the resources used to produce it, but also the vast amounts of waste left behind. In regions where hundreds of thousands of cows are concentrated in industrial-scale operations, the sheer volume of manure creates a colossal waste management challenge. Storage lagoons and barns overflow, and the risk of pollution grows with every passing day. The land surrounding these farms simply cannot absorb all this waste safely. Excess manure runs off into streams and rivers, seeps into the soil and pollutes the air, water and land. The result is a cascade of environmental problems that extend far beyond the farm fence. When farmers attempt to use this slurry as fertilizer, spreading it on fields, the land quickly becomes oversaturated with nitrogen. The soil can only absorb so much before it reaches its limit. The surplus nitrates that plants cannot use begin to leach down through the soil, contaminating groundwater supplies. This invisible pollution is difficult to detect until it's too late. In many regions dominated by intensive dairy farming, drinking water sources now show dangerously high levels of nitrates. These contaminants can pose serious health risks to humans, including infants and pregnant women, and have been linked to conditions such as blue baby syndrome and certain cancers. But the environmental cost doesn't stop at water pollution. As slurry breaks down, it releases gases into the atmosphere, including ammonia and nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide is a greenhouse gas nearly 300 times more effective at trapping heat than carbon dioxide. Its release from dairy operations is a significant, yet often overlooked contributor to global climate change. The entire system operates on a linear model. We extract resources from one place, use them in another, and dispose of the waste elsewhere. There is little attempt to close the loop or recycle nutrients in a sustainable way. Forests are cleared in South America to grow feed, which is then shipped across oceans to Europe or other dairy-intensive regions. There, it is fed to cows, and the resulting waste pollutes local environments, creating a global chain of environmental degradation. This is a stark contrast to traditional farming, where animal waste was a valuable resource used to fertilize the very land that grew the animals' food. The cycle was local, balanced and sustainable. Today, the industrial scale of modern dairy has shattered this natural cycle. The environmental costs are externalized, borne not by the industry but by the planet and its people. The enormous volume of milk produced each day is sustained by a system that is fundamentally depleting and polluting our shared natural resources. The true cost of milk is measured not just in dollars, but in the health of our ecosystems, our climate, and our future. For generations, milk has been celebrated and promoted as nature's perfect food, a message that has echoed through our culture for decades, shaping the way we think about nutrition and health. From breakfast tables to school cafeterias, milk has been positioned as an essential component of a healthy diet, a daily ritual believed to be vital for everyone, especially growing children. The narrative has always been clear. Milk is crucial for building strong bones, supporting growth, and ensuring robust health in childhood and beyond. This belief has been powerfully reinforced by decades of relentless marketing campaigns, government dietary guidelines, and endorsements from health authorities, all working together to cement milk's place as a dietary staple in Western households. As a result, milk is found in nearly every refrigerator, and its presence in our diets is often taken for granted, rarely questioned or scrutinized. The primary justification for this widespread consumption has always been milk's high calcium content, which is said to be essential for bone health and the prevention of osteoporosis. We've been told that without enough calcium from milk, our bones will weaken, increasing the risk of fractures and osteoporosis as we age. This belief is so deeply ingrained in our culture that, for many, the idea of questioning milk's health benefits seems almost unthinkable, like challenging a fundamental truth. In fact, raising doubts about milk can provoke strong reactions, as if it's an attack on common sense or tradition. However, in recent years, a growing body of scientific research has begun to challenge these long-held assumptions, prompting a re-examination of milk's role in our diets. The evidence emerging from these studies paints a far more complex and sometimes contradictory picture than the simple slogans of the past. Large-scale epidemiological studies, which track the health of hundreds of thousands of people over many years, have uncovered a surprising paradox. Countries with the highest rates of dairy consumption, such as those in Northern Europe and North America, are also the very places where rates of osteoporosis and bone fractures are the highest. This is particularly striking in regions like Scandinavia and the United States, where milk is consumed daily by people of all ages. Yet despite this high intake, these populations experience some of the highest rates of bone fractures and osteoporosis in the world. This finding suggests that simply drinking more milk may not, in fact, protect our bones as effectively as we've been led to believe. In fact, some researchers argue that the relationship between dairy, calcium and bone health is far more nuanced, influenced by a range of factors including genetics, lifestyle and overall diet. Some extensive research, tracking hundreds of thousands of individuals over many years, has even suggested that high milk consumption could have unintended consequences for our health. These studies, which follow people across decades, have found that those who drink large amounts of milk may actually face higher risks in certain areas. For example, some data points to a possible increase in overall mortality among heavy milk drinkers, raising concerns about the long-term safety of high dairy intake. These findings have led scientists to question whether the blanket recommendation of high milk consumption is truly justified for everyone. Furthermore, some evidence has emerged linking high dairy intake to an increased risk of developing certain types of cancer, most notably prostate cancer in men. While the mechanisms are still being studied, the potential connection between dairy and cancer risk has added another layer of complexity to the debate. It's important to note that this research is ongoing, and the conclusions are still hotly debated within the scientific community. Not all studies agree, and many factors can influence the results. Nevertheless, these findings raise serious questions about the wisdom of recommending high dairy consumption for everyone, regardless of age, health status, or dietary needs. In response to this uncertainty, many nutrition experts are now advocating for a more moderate, individualized approach to dairy. The consensus is gradually shifting away from the idea that we all need multiple glasses of milk every day to be healthy and towards a more nuanced understanding of dairy's role in the diet. Instead, a more balanced view is emerging, one that recognizes dairy as just one of many possible sources of nutrition rather than an absolute necessity. This perspective suggests that while dairy can be included as part of a healthy diet, it is by no means essential, and many people thrive without it. Some researchers now propose a safe upper limit of 1 to 2 servings of dairy per day, emphasizing moderation and individual needs. At the same time, they acknowledge that a diet with no dairy at all can be perfectly healthy, provided it is well balanced and includes other sources of essential nutrients. The debate over milk's place in our diets is far from settled, but what is clear is that the simple, unequivocal health claims of the past are being replaced by a more cautious, questioning and evidence-based perspective, one that encourages us to think critically about what we put on our plates. Within the imposing walls of Brussels, decisions are made that ripple across continents, shaping not only the future of European agriculture, but also the livelihoods of millions far beyond Europe's borders. The European Union's agricultural policies, crafted through years of negotiation and political manoeuvring, have become a powerful force in the global food system. At the turn of the millennium, the EU underwent a dramatic transformation in its approach to agriculture. Previously, the focus had been on managing internal supply, ensuring that European farmers could make a living and that food security was maintained within member states. But around the year 2000, a new vision took hold, one that prioritized global competitiveness and the aggressive pursuit of export markets. The new policy direction was clear: produce more than Europe could consume and send the surplus, especially dairy products like milk and milk powder, out into the world. Cargo ships laden with European milk powder began departing for distant shores, targeting rapidly growing markets in Asia and Africa. This export-driven strategy was not born in a vacuum. It was the result of intense lobbying by powerful coalitions of food industry giants and industrial farm associations. These groups, representing some of the largest corporations in the world, pushed for policies that would guarantee them a steady supply of cheap raw materials, milk in particular, by encouraging overproduction and keeping prices low. One of the most significant and controversial outcomes of this policy has been the dumping of surplus European milk onto developing markets. Instead of being consumed within Europe, vast quantities of milk are processed into powder, shipped thousands of kilometres and sold at rock-bottom prices in countries that often have their own struggling dairy sectors. In West Africa, for example, the impact is deeply felt. Local dairy farmers, who have raised cattle for generations and supply fresh milk to their communities, suddenly find themselves unable to compete. Their traditional methods, rooted in local ecosystems and cultures, are no match for the flood of cheap imported milk powder. The contrast is stark. On one side you have fresh, locally produced milk, often more nutritious and better suited to local tastes. On the other, imported European milk powder, heavily subsidized and sold at prices that local farmers simply cannot match. The result? Local milk sits unsold, while imported powder dominates the market. This relentless influx of cheap imports devastates local economies. Markets that once bustled with activity now stand half empty. Farmers, unable to sell their milk, face financial ruin. The growth of a sustainable domestic dairy industry is stifled, and a cycle of rural poverty and dependence on foreign goods is perpetuated. The winners in this system are clear: European corporations whose profits soar as they expand into new markets. The losers are equally clear: small-scale farmers in Africa and other developing regions whose livelihoods are eroded by forces far beyond their control. But this entire system is not self-sustaining. It is held together by a labyrinth of subsidies and financial incentives carefully constructed over decades. These subsidies are the lifeblood of European agriculture, making it possible for farmers to sell their products below the true cost of production. Every year, billions of euros flow from EU coffers directly into the bank accounts of European farmers. For many, these payments are not a bonus. They are a necessity. Without them, the economics of dairy farming would collapse, as the market price for milk is often lower than the cost of producing it. Farmers themselves admit the harsh reality. Without subsidies, their businesses would not survive. The price they receive for milk is simply too low, squeezed by both overproduction and the relentless drive for efficiency demanded by the global market. These subsidies, while providing a lifeline to European farmers, also fuel the cycle of overproduction. The excess milk is processed, powdered and shipped abroad, where it is sold at prices that undercut local producers in developing countries. In effect, European taxpayers are unwittingly funding a global system that allows large agribusinesses to dominate international markets, often at the expense of small-scale farmers in the global south. The money flows from European wallets, through government subsidies, and ultimately into the pockets of multinational corporations, while local farmers elsewhere struggle to survive. The influence of corporate lobbying in shaping these policies is immense. Behind closed doors, industry representatives and lobbyists work tirelessly to ensure that regulations favour their interests, often at the expense of smaller players and the environment. These groups, representing the giants of the food processing industry, have a direct line to policymakers in Brussels. They advocate for deregulation, free market access and policies that guarantee a steady supply of cheap ingredients, regardless of the consequences for farmers or the environment. Their ultimate goal is simple: a limitless supply of cheap raw materials to feed their global operations. The current agricultural policy, with its emphasis on overproduction and export, delivers exactly that. Meanwhile, the voices of those most affected, small-scale farmers, environmental advocates and development organizations, are often drowned out. Their protests and pleas for a fairer, more sustainable system struggle to gain traction against the overwhelming power of corporate interests. The end result is a policy framework that prioritizes industrial growth and export volumes above all else. Food sovereignty, environmental protection, and the economic stability of rural communities, both in Europe and abroad, are sacrificed in the name of global competitiveness and corporate profit. The dark side of milk, it seems, is not just about what happens on the farm, but about the far-reaching consequences of policies made in distant corridors of power. In the relentless global search for new and lucrative markets, few prizes have been as fiercely pursued as China, a nation whose sheer population size and rapid economic growth have made it the ultimate target for the world's dairy industry. For decades, multinational dairy corporations have viewed China as the final frontier, a place where the potential for profit seems almost limitless. Historically, dairy was virtually absent from the traditional Chinese diet. Meals were built around rice, vegetables and soy-based proteins, with tofu and soy milk serving as the primary sources of plant-based nutrition. Cheese, butter and fresh milk were foreign concepts, rarely seen in daily life or at local markets. But in the past few decades, this has changed dramatically. Through aggressive marketing campaigns, milk has been rebranded as a symbol of modernity, health and upward mobility. Advertisements often feature Western athletes and celebrities linking milk consumption to strength, intelligence and success, qualities highly valued in China's increasingly competitive society. The primary strategy has been to target children, positioning milk as an essential part of a healthy childhood. School nutrition programs, often sponsored by dairy companies, distribute milk to millions of students every day, reinforcing the idea that milk is vital for growth and academic achievement. The goal is clear: to establish a lifelong habit of milk consumption from an early age. By associating milk with positive childhood experiences and parental care, marketers hope to create generational loyalty to dairy products. Once children begin drinking milk, the logic goes, the entire family is more likely to adopt it. Parents and even grandparents, eager to provide the best for their loved ones, start incorporating dairy into their own diets, leading to a ripple effect throughout society. This approach has unlocked a vast and previously untapped consumer base, over 1 billion people, many of whom are experiencing rising incomes and a growing appetite for new products. The results have been nothing short of phenomenal. China has rapidly transformed into one of the world's largest and fastest-growing dairy markets, with demand for milk, yogurt, cheese and infant formula soaring year after year. European dairy giants, recognizing the immense potential, have been at the forefront of this expansion. Their products, often perceived as premium and high quality, are highly sought after by Chinese consumers. These companies have invested heavily in building relationships, infrastructure and distribution networks to secure their foothold in the Chinese market. Strategic partnerships and joint ventures with local firms have become commonplace. For companies like Arla and Friesland Campina, China is not just another market. It is the key to their future growth and profitability. Their corporate strategies are now deeply intertwined with the tastes and preferences of Chinese consumers. These companies have moved beyond simply exporting basic milk powder. They are now investing in research and development to create sophisticated, targeted products tailored to the unique needs and desires of the Chinese population. This includes specialized nutritional formulas for different age groups, infant formula for babies, fortified milk for children, and functional dairy drinks for adults and seniors. Products like Optimil are specifically marketed to seniors, promising benefits such as improved bone health, enhanced immunity, and better digestion. These products are carefully labelled and advertised to the 40+, 50+, and 60+ demographics, creating entirely new consumer segments and needs that did not previously exist. The result is a surge in demand and the creation of new revenue streams, as dairy companies capitalize on the evolving needs of China's aging population and health-conscious middle class. To satisfy this burgeoning demand, China has embarked on a massive transformation of its own dairy industry, investing billions in modernizing production and distribution. Across the country, construction crews are building enormous dairy farms equipped with the latest technology. Government support and private investment have fueled a race to scale up production and reduce reliance on imports. The result is the rapid emergence of mega dairies, industrial-scale operations that house tens of thousands of cows under a single roof, producing millions of litres of milk each day. These facilities are marvels of efficiency, with automated feeding, milking and waste management systems designed to maximise output and minimise labour costs. They represent the epitome of industrial agriculture, where technology and scale converge to create a new model of food production. The scale of these operations dwarfs even the largest farms in Europe or America, fundamentally altering the rural landscape and the nature of farming itself. China, often described as the workshop of the world, is now applying its industrial might to food production, bringing the same drive for efficiency and output to the dairy sector. Advanced automation, robotics and data analytics are being integrated into every stage of the process, from feeding cows to packaging milk, ensuring that Chinese dairy farms are among the most technologically advanced in the world. Chinese producers are also learning from their international partners, importing management techniques and cutting-edge technology to further boost productivity and quality. The goal is clear: to create the most efficient, high-output milk-producing factories on the planet, capable of meeting both domestic demand and export ambitions. Yet this rapid industrialization brings with it a host of challenges. Animal welfare concerns are mounting, as cows are kept in confined, high-density environments. Environmental issues, such as waste management and water pollution, are becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. The rise of China's dairy market is a vivid illustration of the global nature of the modern milk system. Milk, once a local product, now travels thousands of miles, connecting farmers, corporations and consumers across continents. It is a story of how corporate strategy, marketing ingenuity and economic ambition can create demand where none existed before, reshaping not only consumer habits but entire industries. This demand, in turn, is transforming agricultural landscapes, not just in China but around the world, as land is repurposed and resources redirected to feed the global appetite for dairy. Today, the fortunes of a Danish farmer are intrinsically linked to the consumption habits of a family in Shanghai. The global dairy supply chain is more interconnected than ever before. While this creates immense economic opportunities for multinational corporations and their shareholders, it also raises important questions about sustainability, equity, and the true cost of growth. The industrial model of farming, with its focus on scale and efficiency, is now being exported to new corners of the globe, often with little regard for local traditions or environmental limits. This expansion brings with it all the inherent problems of industrial agriculture: animal suffering, environmental degradation, and the loss of small-scale farming communities. As the model spreads, it threatens to displace traditional ways of life and further entrench a system that values volume and profit above all else. The story of China's dairy boom is ultimately a story of globalization, of how the pursuit of new markets and higher profits can reshape diets, economies and environments on a planetary scale, leaving us to question what is gained and what is lost in the process. In a world where the industrial model of dairy farming dominates the landscape, it can be easy to overlook the quiet revolution taking place in the shadows. Yet, scattered across the globe, there are pockets of resistance, farmers and communities who are daring to imagine and build a different future for dairy. These innovators are not just reacting to the problems of industrial agriculture, they are actively reimagining what dairy farming can be, and in doing so, they offer us a glimpse of a more hopeful, sustainable path forward. Some farmers are making a conscious decision to step off the relentless treadmill of grow or die. Instead, they are embracing alternative approaches such as organic certification, regenerative agriculture and pasture-based systems that prioritize the health of the land, the animals and the people who depend on them. These choices are not made lightly. They often require a complete rethinking of how a farm operates from the ground up. In these systems, the health of the soil becomes the foundation of the entire operation. Farmers test and nurture their fields, encouraging biodiversity and building organic matter. Cows are rotated through diverse pastures, allowing the land to recover and thrive. The result is a living, breathing ecosystem where animals, plants and microbes work together in harmony. Take, for example, an organic farmer in Germany. Rather than relying on imported feed, he chooses to operate a closed-loop system. His cows graze on a variety of native grasses and wildflowers, and their manure is carefully composted and returned to the fields, enriching the very soil that sustains them. This approach not only reduces the farm's environmental footprint, but also fosters a deep connection between the animals, the land, and the farmer. In these alternative systems, the daily life of a cow is transformed. Instead of being confined to crowded barns or feedlots, she enjoys the freedom to roam, graze, and rest in open pastures. Her coat is clean, her eyes are bright, and her demeanour is calm. A stark contrast to the stress and discomfort often seen in industrial settings. She is allowed to express her natural behaviours, grazing, socialising with her herd, even playing or rubbing against trees. Calves may stay with their mothers longer, and the herd structure is more stable and less stressful. Her diet is based primarily on fresh grass, which her digestive system is perfectly adapted to process. This not only improves her health and reduces the need for antibiotics, but also results in milk that is richer in nutrients and flavour. As a result, cows in these systems are generally healthier, requiring fewer medical interventions. They live longer, more comfortable lives, sometimes remaining productive members of the herd for a decade or more, far longer than the average lifespan in industrial dairies. Of course, there is a trade-off. These cows may produce only half the amount of milk as their intensively farmed counterparts. But here the focus shifts from sheer volume to quality and value. The milk is richer, often commanding a higher price, and is valued for its taste, nutritional content, and the story behind it. Many of these farms process their milk on-site, turning it into artisanal cheeses, yogurts, and other specialty products. These goods are sold directly to local consumers, at farmers' markets, farm shops, or through community-supported agriculture schemes, allowing the farm to remain economically viable on a much smaller scale. Economic studies reveal a fascinating pattern. The most financially successful dairy farms are often found at the two extremes of the spectrum. On one end, you have the massive, highly efficient industrial operations. On the other, the most extensive low-input systems, like organic and regenerative farms, can also thrive, especially when they tap into niche markets and direct sales. It is the farms caught in the middle, those trying to compete on volume without the massive scale or the unique value proposition, that tend to struggle the most. These mid-sized operations often face the harshest economic pressures, squeezed by both ends of the market. This suggests that there are viable business models outside of the relentless push for industrial intensification. By focusing on quality, sustainability, and direct relationships with consumers, farmers can carve out a niche that is both profitable and fulfilling. These alternative farms often internalize costs that industrial farms externalize, such as environmental protection, animal health, and community well-being. By investing in renewable energy, planting trees, restoring wetlands, and caring for their animals, they build a more resilient and truly sustainable enterprise that can weather the storms of a changing world. Some farmers are even finding innovative ways to create value from what the industrial system considers waste. Manure, once a pollutant, becomes a precious resource, composted to enrich the soil or processed to generate renewable energy. In a striking example of this ingenuity, one farmer discovered he could earn more money by processing his cow's manure in a biogas digester to generate electricity than he could from selling their milk. This not only provides a new revenue stream, but also helps the farm become energy independent and reduces greenhouse gas emissions. By transforming a potential pollutant into a source of renewable energy, these farmers are closing the loop and demonstrating that sustainability and profitability can go hand in hand. These inspiring examples show that with creativity, courage, and a different set of values, it is possible to build a food system that is fairer to farmers, kinder to animals, and works in true harmony with the environment. The path may not be easy, but it is one that offers hope, not just for the future of dairy, but for the future of our planet. The challenges embedded in our modern dairy system are complex, deeply rooted and interconnected with many aspects of our society, ranging from economics and culture to the environment and public health. Yet, despite the scale and intricacy of these issues, they are not insurmountable. If we are willing to look honestly at the problems and work together, meaningful change is possible. Charting a better course for the future requires a multifaceted approach, one that brings together the perspectives and efforts of policymakers, farmers, scientists, business leaders and consumers alike. No single group can solve these problems alone. It will take collaboration, innovation, and a willingness to rethink long-held assumptions about how milk is produced, distributed and consumed. A crucial first step would be to reform agricultural policies at both national and international levels, shifting the focus from maximizing sheer production volume to prioritizing long-term sustainability, resilience, and public good. This means re-examining the incentives and regulations that currently shape the industry, and ensuring that they align with the needs of people, animals, and the planet. Specifically, this involves redirecting subsidies and support away from large-scale industrialized dairy operations and towards smaller organic and pasture-based systems. These systems are designed to protect the environment, promote animal welfare, and strengthen local food economies. By supporting these alternatives, we can help create a more diverse and resilient agricultural landscape. Fairer trade rules are also essential. For too long, the dumping of cheap dairy surpluses on developing countries has undermined local farmers, making it nearly impossible for them to compete. By reforming international trade agreements and supporting local production, we can give small-scale farmers around the world a genuine chance to thrive and build food security in their own communities. Farmers themselves are at the very forefront of this potential transformation. They are the stewards of the land and the caretakers of the animals, and their knowledge and experience are invaluable. But they also face immense pressures, from volatile markets to changing regulations and the impacts of climate change. Supporting those who wish to transition to more sustainable practices is essential. This support can take many forms: financial incentives, technical assistance, access to new markets, and recognition for their efforts. By investing in farmers, we invest in the future of our food system. This could involve direct payments or grants for adopting agroecological methods, building knowledge-sharing networks that connect farmers with experts and each other, and investing in local processing facilities. These facilities allow farmers to capture more of the value they create, keeping profits within rural communities and encouraging innovation in dairy products. Encouraging systems where animals are fed primarily on local grass and where their manure is returned to the soil as a natural fertilizer can help restore the natural cycles that industrialization has disrupted. These regenerative practices not only reduce pollution and greenhouse gas emissions, but also build healthier soils and more resilient ecosystems. The benefits of these changes extend far beyond the farm gate. By reducing the industry's environmental footprint and supporting local economies, we can help create more resilient, vibrant, and economically stable rural communities, places where families can thrive and future generations can look forward to a better life. As consumers, we also hold significant power to drive change through our daily choices. Every time we purchase milk or dairy products, we are casting a vote for the kind of food system we want to support. We can start by asking more questions about where our food comes from, how it is produced, and who benefits from its sale. By seeking out information and engaging with producers, we become more informed and empowered participants in the food system. Choosing to buy milk and dairy products from local, organic or pasture-raised sources whenever possible sends a powerful market signal. It tells retailers and producers that there is demand for products that are better for the environment, animals and communities. Furthermore, we can reconsider our own consumption habits. This might mean reflecting on how much dairy we truly need and how we can enjoy it in ways that are both satisfying and sustainable. This does not necessarily mean eliminating dairy entirely, but perhaps consuming it more mindfully and in moderation, treating it as a quality product to be savoured, rather than a cheap, everyday commodity to be taken for granted. Exploring the growing variety of plant-based alternatives can also help reduce the overall demand that fuels the most intensive forms of dairy production. These alternatives offer new flavours, nutritional profiles, and opportunities for innovation while lessening the pressure on land, water, and animals. Ultimately, creating a better milk system requires a fundamental shift in perspective. We must move beyond seeing food, animals, and the planet as mere resources to be exploited, and instead recognize their intrinsic value and interconnectedness. We must move away from a model that prioritizes maximum profit at any cost, and acknowledge the true costs, environmental, social, and ethical, of cheap food. Only then can we begin to repair the damage and build a system that works for everyone. Instead, we can embrace a vision based on principles of health, fairness, and ecological balance. A vision where food nourishes not just our bodies, but our communities and the world around us. By fostering policies that support sustainable farming, empowering consumers to make informed choices, and recognizing the true cost of cheap food, we can begin to build a dairy industry that nourishes not only us, but also the animals, the farmers, and the planet we all share. The future of milk and of our food system as a whole depends on the choices we make today. While sweeping reforms and big-picture strategies set the stage for transformation, the real story of change is often written in the everyday actions of people on the ground. Across the world, farmers, entrepreneurs and communities are already pioneering new approaches to dairy, turning challenges into opportunities and reimagining what's possible for the industry and the planet. In Northern Europe, a cooperative of small-scale dairy farmers has banded together to restore traditional grazing practices. By rotating herds on diverse pastures and investing in native grasslands, they've not only improved soil health and biodiversity, but also created unique, high-quality cheeses that command premium prices. Their story is echoed in urban neighbourhoods, where micro-dairies and community-supported agriculture programs connect city dwellers directly to local producers, building trust and transparency in every glass of milk. Meanwhile, in East Africa, innovative startups are empowering women to become dairy entrepreneurs. By providing training, microloans and access to solar-powered cooling systems, these projects are helping smallholders boost productivity, reduce waste and lift entire families out of poverty, while keeping traditions alive and strengthening local food security. Even in countries with long histories of industrial dairy, a new generation is taking the reins. Young farmers are leveraging technology to monitor animal welfare, reduce emissions, and make precision use of resources. Some are experimenting with mixed herds, integrating dairy cows, goats, and even plant-based alternatives on the same land to diversify income and reduce risk. Others are forging new partnerships with scientists and chefs to create delicious, climate-friendly dairy products that celebrate local flavours and sustainable methods. These stories share a common thread: the power of creativity, courage and community to drive meaningful change. They show that a better dairy system isn't just an abstract ideal, but a living, growing reality, one that begins with bold ideas and is sustained by everyday choices. As we look to the future, these seeds of change remind us that transformation is possible and that each of us has a role to play. By learning from these pioneers and supporting their efforts, we can help grow a dairy industry that truly nourishes people, animals and the planet, today and for generations to come. Change doesn't end at the farm gate or city border. The innovations and choices made by these dairy trailblazers spark ripples that travel far beyond their own communities. As pioneering practices prove their worth, neighbours take notice, local governments craft supportive policies, and global organisations look for ways to scale up success. In rural India, farmer-led learning circles are inspiring entire villages to adopt regenerative grazing and water-saving techniques, transforming once degraded landscapes into thriving pastures. Across South America, networks of women dairy producers are sharing knowledge through social media and workshops, creating a movement that's raising both incomes and environmental standards. In the United States, school districts and hospitals are sourcing milk and cheese from regenerative farms, amplifying demand for sustainable dairy and encouraging more producers to make the switch. The influence of these efforts even reaches consumers worldwide. Transparent labelling, storytelling and digital platforms let people everywhere support responsible dairy with every purchase. As more buyers ask questions about where their milk comes from, supermarkets and brands are responding, offering new choices and raising the bar for everyone. Step by step, these ripples of impact are changing the conversation about dairy. They're proving that sustainability and prosperity can go hand in hand, and that when communities connect and learn from each other, transformation accelerates. In the end, every action, no matter how small, contributes to a larger wave of progress. And as these ripples grow, they carry us all toward a kinder, more resilient future for dairy and for our planet. The journey towards a sustainable dairy industry is not one that can be walked alone. It thrives on the power of collective action, where each stakeholder plays a vital role in driving meaningful change. In Europe, cooperatives of small-scale dairy farmers are pooling resources to invest in renewable energy technologies, reducing their carbon footprint while cutting costs. These initiatives are supported by regional governments that recognise the economic and environmental benefits of a united approach. In Africa, community-led initiatives are making waves. Dairy cooperatives are not just focusing on production, but are also creating educational programs, empowering the next generation of farmers with knowledge about sustainable practices. These programs are fostering a sense of ownership and responsibility, ensuring that the principles of sustainability are passed down and upheld. Across Asia, innovation hubs are emerging, where farmers, scientists and tech developers collaborate to create solutions tailored to local challenges. From developing drought-resistant feed crops to designing low-cost, high-efficiency milking systems, these hubs are incubators of progress, where ideas are turned into actionable strategies. And in the digital age, the power of collective action is amplified through online platforms. Crowdfunding initiatives are enabling consumers to directly support sustainable dairy projects, while social media campaigns are raising awareness and building communities around shared values. These digital tools are breaking down barriers, making it easier for people from all walks of life to contribute to the movement. As these collective efforts gain momentum, they create a tapestry of interconnected actions that reinforce and amplify each other. They demonstrate that when individuals and communities come together, they can achieve far more than they ever could alone. The power of collective action lies in its ability to harness diverse strengths, turning individual ripples into a powerful wave of transformation. Together, we are not just changing the way we produce and consume dairy, we are redefining what is possible for our food systems and our planet. With every step taken in unison, we move closer to a future where sustainability is not the exception, but the norm. This is the power of collective action, boundless, resilient, and unstoppable. As collective action for a sustainable dairy industry gains ground, the question emerges, what comes next? The movement is no longer just about making immediate changes, it's about building a legacy that endures for generations. The road ahead calls for long-term vision, where today's efforts lay the foundation for tomorrow's thriving communities, resilient environments, and equitable food systems. Across continents, new alliances are being forged between farmers, consumers, policymakers, and innovators. These partnerships aim not only to solve current challenges, but to anticipate future ones, like adapting to shifting climates, evolving consumer preferences, and the ever-changing global market. By investing in research and education, the dairy sector is equipping the next generation with the tools and knowledge to lead, innovate, and protect the planet. Legacy also means inclusion. Efforts are underway to ensure that smallholders, women, and marginalized groups have a seat at the table, shaping solutions that reflect the diversity of the world's dairy landscapes. Through mentorship programs, accessible financing, and open-source technology, barriers are being dismantled and opportunities expanded. The road ahead will not always be easy. There will be setbacks and tough decisions, but with a shared vision and the resolve to keep moving forward, every small victory becomes a stepping stone. Each positive action, whether on a family farm, in a city supermarket, or in the halls of government, adds to a growing legacy of sustainability. Ultimately, the future of dairy is being written by all of us together. By daring to imagine what's possible and working hand in hand, we are not just transforming an industry, we're shaping a more just and sustainable world. The journey continues, and the legacy we build today will nourish generations to come. As the legacy of sustainable dairy takes root, the spotlight turns to the innovations redefining what's possible in the industry. Across the globe, scientists and entrepreneurs are pushing boundaries, developing cutting-edge solutions that blend tradition with technology. Automated milking systems are easing the workload for farmers while improving animal welfare. Data-driven tools help monitor herd health, optimize feed, and reduce waste, making every drop of milk more efficient and less impactful on the environment. But innovation isn't limited to the barn. Alternative proteins and plant-based dairy products are gaining ground, offering consumers more choices than ever before. These new options challenge the industry to evolve, sparking collaborations between conventional producers and startups, and encouraging everyone to rethink what dairy can be. Renewable energy projects like biogas from manure and solar-powered barns are turning farms into powerhouses of sustainability. Digital marketplaces connect small-scale dairy producers directly with local consumers, shortening supply chains and building stronger communities. Education and outreach remain at the heart of these advances. Workshops, online platforms, and community forums are making knowledge accessible, empowering farmers and consumers alike to make informed decisions. The innovations emerging today are not just fixing problems, they are planting seeds for a future where dairy is more resilient, inclusive, and responsive to the needs of people and the planet. By embracing change and nurturing creativity, the industry is proving that the journey towards sustainability is not just about survival, it's about thriving together. The future of dairy isn't being shaped by technology alone, it's driven by a culture of curiosity and collaboration that extends far beyond the farm gate. Around the world, farmers, scientists, chefs, and everyday consumers are coming together to ask bold questions and experiment with new ideas. From urban rooftop dairies to community-supported agriculture projects, Unconventional spaces are being transformed into living laboratories for sustainable food production. Education programs are inspiring the next generation of innovators, encouraging students to blend agricultural traditions with modern science. Open-source platforms and global networks are breaking down barriers, allowing anyone with a passion for progress to share discoveries, troubleshoot challenges, and build on each other's successes. The dairy industry is also embracing transparency, inviting the public to see how their milk is produced, processed, and delivered. Virtual farm tours, interactive workshops, and open dialogues are fostering trust and understanding, helping to bridge the gap between producers and consumers. As curiosity fuels experimentation, new possibilities emerge, whether it's developing climate-resilient crops for animal feed, inventing zero-waste packaging, or designing dairy products tailored to diverse dietary needs. The journey ahead will require open minds and open hearts as we continue to reimagine what dairy can be in a changing world. By cultivating a spirit of inquiry and inclusion, the dairy sector is not just keeping pace with innovation, it's setting the stage for a future where everyone has a hand in shaping a more sustainable, delicious and equitable food system. As the culture of curiosity takes root, the movement to reimagine dairy is finding its greatest champions among the next generation. Across classrooms, youth clubs and digital platforms, young minds are being empowered to see themselves as change-makers, questioning old assumptions and dreaming up solutions that haven't yet been tried. Interactive school programs and hands-on internships are demystifying the dairy industry, giving students a front-row seat to the science, stewardship and creativity behind every glass of milk. From coding AI-powered barn robots to designing plant-based dairy alternatives in science fairs, young innovators are stepping up with fresh perspectives that honour tradition while pushing boundaries. Mentorship initiatives are connecting students with farmers, veterinarians and food technologists, fostering a spirit of learning and collaboration that spans generations. Online competitions, hackathons and youth-led advocacy groups are turning curiosity into action as young people challenge the industry to raise its ambitions for animal welfare, environmental responsibility, and community well-being. Through their voices and their vision, the next generation is not just inheriting the future of dairy, they're leading it. As we invest in education and nurture youthful curiosity, we plant the seeds for a dairy revolution that is as bold, inclusive and inventive as the people who will shape it. The journey continues, powered by the limitless imagination of tomorrow's leaders. Across the globe, young people are moving beyond the classroom and stepping into the heart of decision-making. No longer content to simply learn about the dairy industry, they are demanding a seat at the table, bringing their insights, energy and ideals directly to industry leaders and policymakers. Youth advisory councils are springing up within agricultural organisations, giving students a platform to speak on issues that matter most: animal welfare, climate action and food justice. Social media campaigns led by youth activists are sparking national conversations, while student delegations attend international food and climate summits, ensuring the voices of tomorrow are heard today. From rural villages to urban centres, youth cooperatives are piloting new models for ethical and sustainable dairy. By organising community forums and collaborating with local governments, these young changemakers are influencing everything from farm subsidies to school lunch programmes. They are harnessing digital tools to crowdsource ideas, track policy progress, and hold institutions accountable. As the next generation continues to step up, their advocacy is transforming not just how milk is produced, but how society values transparency, equity and innovation in food systems. With every petition signed, every proposal drafted and every conversation started, Youth are not just preparing for the future, they are shaping it, ensuring that the dairy revolution is guided by the wisdom, passion and integrity of those who will live its consequences the longest. While young voices are shaping policy, their impact doesn't end at the negotiation table. Across continents, youth are rolling up their sleeves and launching real-world projects that put their visions for a better dairy industry into practice. In university labs, students are developing plant-based alternatives and pioneering new fermentation techniques that promise to reduce the industry's carbon footprint. On family farms, young entrepreneurs are piloting regenerative grazing, precision feeding and waste-to-energy systems, proving that sustainable dairy is not only possible, it's profitable. Digital natives by birth, these innovators are leveraging technology in ways previous generations never imagined. From open-source apps that connect small dairy farmers to local consumers, to blockchain platforms that ensure milk's journey is transparent and traceable, youth-led startups are rewriting the rules of the game. They're creating online communities where farmers, scientists and consumers can share knowledge, troubleshoot challenges and celebrate successes, bridging the gap between rural traditions and urban innovation. These youth-driven initiatives are more than experiments. They are living proof that with creativity, collaboration and courage, the next generation can transform the dairy landscape from the ground up. By turning bold ideas into tangible action, young people aren't just dreaming of a better future, they're building it one breakthrough at a time. Around the world, young changemakers aren't working in isolation. They're joining forces to amplify their impact. International youth alliances are bringing together students, young farmers, scientists, and activists from every corner of the globe. Through virtual summits, collaborative research projects, and cross-cultural exchanges, these networks are breaking down borders and building bridges of shared purpose. In Kenya, youth cooperatives are exchanging sustainable farming techniques with peers in Ireland. In Brazil, student-run incubators are partnering with European startups to test climate-smart dairy solutions tailored to local environments. Online forums and global hackathons are empowering young people to co-create tools, share data, and crowdsource answers to the industry's toughest challenges. Together, these youth alliances are advocating for fairer trade, greener practices, and greater transparency, pushing governments and corporations to listen and act. By uniting their diverse skills and perspectives, young leaders are forging a new global movement for dairy transformation, one that's inclusive, resilient, and future-focused. The message is clear. When youth work together, their collective power can spark change that ripples far beyond their own communities, shaping the future of dairy for generations to come. As youth alliances continue to solidify their global presence, the next wave of innovation is being driven by young minds determined to reshape the dairy industry. These young innovators are not only imagining the future, they are building it. In laboratories and at kitchen tables, they are developing groundbreaking technologies that promise to revolutionize dairy production and consumption. In India, a group of engineering students has designed an AI-powered system that monitors cow health in real time, alerting farmers to potential issues before they become critical. This technology is reducing veterinary costs and improving animal welfare, setting a new standard for dairy farming. Meanwhile, in Canada, young entrepreneurs are pioneering plant-based dairy alternatives that mimic the taste and texture of traditional milk, offering consumers more sustainable and ethical choices. Across Africa, mobile apps developed by young tech enthusiasts are providing smallholder farmers with access to market prices, weather forecasts and best practices, empowering them to make informed decisions and increase their productivity. In the United States, a coalition of high school students has launched a campaign to reduce milk waste in schools using data analytics to optimize milk distribution and consumption. These innovations are not just technological, they are also social. Young leaders are using social media platforms to raise awareness about the environmental and ethical impacts of dairy production, mobilizing their peers to advocate for change. They are organizing community workshops, educational programs, and grassroots campaigns to inspire a new generation of dairy-conscious consumers. The impact of these youth-driven initiatives is already being felt. Dairy farms are becoming more efficient and sustainable. Consumers are making more informed choices, and the industry is being held to higher standards of transparency and responsibility. As these young innovators continue to push the boundaries of what is possible, they are proving that the future of dairy is in capable hands. The journey is far from over, but with each new idea and every collaborative effort, we move closer to a dairy industry that is kinder to animals, gentler on the planet, and better for all of us. The power of youth innovation is undeniable, and its potential to drive meaningful change is limitless. Together, they are not just imagining a better future, they are making it a reality.